Well, what's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with week 7 of the NFL season. It's preview time. Let's get this started. Everything you see on this video will be available on dfsondemand.com. This is the cheat sheet, and we're going to do this like we do every week, where we're going to roll through each position, talk about some of the more interesting plays of the week, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong, or how wrong I am, I should say. All right, so it's an interesting week because we've got 4 teams on bye: Packers, Raiders, Steelers, Seahawks. We've got the Thursday night game, which is, hang tight here, the Thursday night game. It's Denver, Arizona. Then you have a London game, which is the Titans and the Chargers. So both of those games not on the main like Millie Maker slate. Then you get the Sunday night game, which was flexed to Cincinnati and Kansas City. That's off the Millie Maker slate. And then the Giants and Falcons on Monday night, also off the slate. So this is probably the thinnest. 4 teams on bye, the London game, probably the thinnest player pool we've seen to this point this year. So it's going to make for some interesting things. Like right off the bat, Jared Goff is the most expensive quarterback. Kirk Cousins is the number 2 most expensive quarterback, $6,600 and $6,400 respectively. Yeah, that's a little bit of a concern. So let's talk about those guys in general. I actually have Goff as my 3rd highest projected quarterback. He is the highest projected quarterback on this slate. I have him for 24.4 points, mostly because it's the matchup with San Francisco, right? San Francisco is nearly dead last in points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. They're actually a little better if you go by points per pass attempt. They're like the 5th worst. So keep that in mind. But either way, Goff kind of stacks up here. But the concern is a few things about Goff. If you're playing a cash game, I probably like him more. If you're playing a GPP, it tends to be difficult to kind of stack with Goff, right? If you want to get like a team stack going or a game stack going, because he has 3 really good receivers. He has Todd Gurley at running back. They just share the wealth so much that, I wouldn't even mind if you kind of it was just like a naked Goff at some point. We'll talk about wide receivers later, but I'm not thrilled to roster Goff, and it's not a knock against him specifically. It's just that I really like the value later on in this slate. So let's move down here. $6,200. Really like Andrew Luck, and I understand that the idea is if you're rostering on DraftKings in the lobby, he is going up against the quote unquote worst matchup. So let me show you this. Buffalo in the DraftKings lobby is the worst matchup for opposing quarterbacks. I have them as the 3rd worst. So we've talked about this before with the way that they calculate fantasy points and players and the way that I do it. Usually pretty close. But you can see here are the quarterbacks that the Buffalo Bills have faced in the last couple weeks. Deshaun Watson and Marcus Mariota held both of those under 9 fantasy points. Before that, though, there was a pretty decent run. I mean, Aaron Rodgers only scored 17 points. Phillip Rivers and Joe Flacco in weeks 1 and 2 scored 21 and 22 points. I don't think this Buffalo defense is as impenetrable as the industry might want you to think. But let me throw this out at you. Andrew Luck is just throwing the ball at an absolutely torrid pace. He is on pace to shatter Matt Stafford's passing attempt record. That's right. He's on pace for 768 passing attempts. Stafford's record's 727. So, I mean, he's 50 over the pace right now. He's averaging 54 pass attempts in his last 3 games, 379 yards, and 3.6 touchdowns in that span. So, really, it's just a matter of volume right now for Andrew Luck, which has got me super excited. All right, I also like Carson Wentz here at $6,000 against Carolina. If you look at this, Carolina is probably allowed the 10th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, about 20.5 per week. If you only look at the last, if you rule out week 1, so weeks 2 through 6, Carolina's like the 5th worst defense against opposing quarterbacks, up to 23 points allowed per week. And it's been Matt Ryan, Andy Dalton, Eli Manning, and Alex Smith. You know, Carson Wentz has really settled in, right? Struggled a bit in his first start of the year. Let's see here. First start of the year, he scored 13 fantasy points. He threw the ball 37 times. The 3 weeks since then, he scored 24, 25, and 24 DraftKings points. If he does that again this week, you pencil him in for 4 times value at a $6,000 salary. Hard to argue that on this slate that we've talked about is a bit ugly. A couple of quick hitters. Don't really mind Trubisky. Don't mind Matt Stafford. But the guy that sticks out here significantly is Drew Brees. Drew Brees is, and I don't know where this number came from. It's $5,700. I'm hoping you guys can see this. Maybe you can't. Hold on. What I'm doing is I'm just pulling up Drew Brees' game logs from, I have the last 4 seasons here. And I will tell you, he has never been priced this low in the last 4 years. In fact, he's never been priced under $6,400. He's $700 off of the lowest price that I have on him in 4 years. And I understand why. The reason is most certainly because it's Baltimore, right? And Baltimore's defense has been, on paper, really good this year. But let me provide a little bit of a counter argument for that. Drew Brees on the road, understand the concerns, but coming off a bye, Baltimore runs at, let me make sure I have this right. I believe it's the second fastest pace. Yeah, it's the second fastest pace this year. So they're a very, very quick team. There's an opportunity for a lot of plays, which will benefit Drew Brees and the Saints offense. And let's dive into this whole, the Baltimore Ravens have been awesome against opposing quarterbacks thing. And it's not entirely wrong, but here is who they have faced this year. Josh Allen, Andy Dalton, Case Keenum, Ben Roethlisberger, Baker Mayfield, and Marcus Mariota. That is by no means a murderer's row of opposing quarterbacks. In fact, not a single one of those guys is in the top 12 in passer rating this year. Allen, Mayfield, Mariota, Keenum, all 28th or worse out of 34 qualified passers. This is just like I like Baltimore's defense, but they have been the beneficiaries of a really, really good schedule to this point. And now they're getting Drew Brees off a bye. Mark Ingram's back. They're just at firing on all cylinders right now. They've scored like 34 points or more in each of the last 3 games. This to me is wrong. $5,700. I will take Road Brees. I don't care. It's wrong. And then really, you could play Flacco on the other side of that game too. Right, he's only $5,400. New Orleans, I believe they allow the most points per pass attempt to opposing quarterbacks. And then if you're super desperate or really want to go cheap, $4,900 on Sam Darnold facing Minnesota. Excuse me. Minnesota plays fast, right? They throw the ball over the yard. They allow a lot of plays. The Jets have kind of looked pretty good. 19 DraftKings points in back-to-back weeks for Super Bowl Sam here, and at $4,900, that's plenty of value. All right, let's scoot along to the running backs. All right, I don't want to spend too much time on the guys here at the top. Todd Gurley, $9,800. He was $10,000 last week. If you can get him in a lineup, let's do it, right? 28 carries. I don't need to describe to you how good Todd Gurley is. I think it's going to be difficult unless some value opens up here to jam Gurley into some lineups. I haven't started building yet, but if you can get him in, obviously do so. If this is a slate where the Falcons are on it and you had access to Ito Smith, that would be different. I think it would be a lot easier to get Todd Gurley in, but we don't have that. So I'll want to see. I guess I could play Breeze at $5,700, or I don't know, Flacco maybe, and try to get Gurley in there. But anyway, if you're looking for I don't want to call him like value Todd Gurley, but Melvin Gordon's just unbelievable. If I show you, let's see if we can pull this up here. Whoops, that was the wrong button. We're going to go to the league. And we're just kind of going to look at targets and rush attempts here for running backs. And what you're going to notice is a couple things. Obviously, Todd Gurley leads the league in rushing attempts, but he's like 15th in targets. He's got 30 of them. So basically, between rushing attempts and targets, this is not really a great stat, but add them together, 159 quote-unquote opportunities. If you look at Melvin Gordon, he's got 91 rush attempts and 42 targets. So what's that, 132? So somewhat in the ballpark, considering he's not even $1,300 less, because he's not on the main slate. I'll have to get his salary for you here real quick. Where is he? $8,400. So he's a $1,400 discount if you're playing slates that include Melvin Gordon. He catches the ball. He's involved in the red zone. Pretty good spot for him. But the guy that I like the most is probably Zeke. So Ezekiel Elliott, let me pull up my stats here. He's got just as many targets as Todd Gurley does. He's got only 12 less rush attempts on the year, so he's getting plenty of opportunity. And let's check his red zone work here for a second. And what we will find, where are we here? Here we go. 14 red zone attempts, which is right on par with basically everyone in the league but Todd Gurley, who just gets every single touch. But he gets the vast majority of his team's rushes inside the 20. He gets 70% of them, which is sixth best in the league. He gets 87% inside the 10. Again, that's a top five figure. And he gets 75% inside the 5, which is another top figure. So Zeke this week, he's averaging 27 touches in the last 3 weeks. It's the most in the league. He's just really lacking the touchdowns, which is why he hasn't been as big of a fantasy producer in the last couple of weeks. But he's getting all the opportunity in the world. All right, I'm probably going to try to get some exposure to the Bears, unfortunately. It's one of these situations where Trubisky and the Bears have been pretty good, right? They're playing New England, who is, not a great defense. They're allowing a ton of points in both real life and in fantasy. And what I'm getting at here is I really like Tariq Cohen, right? $5,100 for a guy who, if you remove his rushes, right? Last week he would have scored 16 DraftKings points. The week before he would have scored 28 DraftKings points. That is all receiving. He is literally a wide receiver, right? Then you throw in a handful of more yards on the ground. Maybe he ends up finding the end zone. There's plenty of upside there. This is the highest total on the Millie Maker slate. I think it's 49.5 points. This is the highest total on that slate. If you're going to have to keep up with Tom Brady, you're going to have to throw the ball. Cohen is the guy who's going to be on the field when they throw the ball. All right, what else do we have here? Just a couple of quick hitters. And as far as value goes, Wendell Smallwood actually pops up on my value sheet here, but I'm a little bit partial to Corey Clement. I think he's just a better pass catcher. I think I like him long-term more. We're going to keep an eye on that. Adrian Peterson, very quickly, all the injuries, every possible injury last week, still saw 17 carries. Got you basically the minimum points he could have for 97 rushing yards. But he looked pretty efficient. I wouldn't mind buying him, and my value kind of indicates that as well. So I actually don't think that wide receiver is as interesting this week as it has been in other weeks. I think it's somewhat straightforward. I think that Michael Crabtree showing up as my top value is really no surprise. He's playing New Orleans, which allows, nearly 2.5 points per target to opposing wide receivers and tight ends. It's the highest rate in the league. No surprise about that. Then you get, Odell Beckham, Julio Jones. They also pop up here. Adam Thielen, who's just an absolute target monster. I don't think there's a heck of a lot to talk about here. I'm going to show you kind of what's going on around the league, just so you can see. And we're going to try to shorten up the time frame, right? We're just going to look at the last 3 weeks, which is something I like to do as we get more into the season. We'll just kind of look at targets and we'll see if anybody pops off. And I already see one, but Devontae Adams, the last 3 weeks leads the league in targets. Then it's Adam Thielen, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, and Chester Rogers. Yeah, this is because Andrew Luck is throwing the ball all over the yard. I'm going to pull up that Indy game and see if I can find a little bit here. Yeah, everybody's hurt, right? T.Y. Hilton, not ruled out, but I don't, we'll see if he plays. Still technically questionable. Ryan Grant, questionable. Chester Rogers, the only healthy guy. He's seen 11, and 10 targets in the last 3 weeks. Big-time beneficiary. He's only $4,700 this week. After that, you get DeAndre Hopkins, Emmanuel Sanders, Stephon Diggs. No surprise, no surprise. Oh, here's Alshon. So we talked already about Carson Wentz. Alshon Jeffrey, big beneficiary, right? Come on. Here we go. He's only played 3 games this year. Okay, so it's the 3 games that you're seeing here. All 29 targets in the last 3 games. Found the end zone twice last week with added 74 yards. Has now scored 27 DraftKings points in 2 of his 3 starts this season. So if I like Wentz, I guess by default I have to like Alshon Jeffrey here. Kiki Cutie, is it Cutie? I think it's Kiki Cutie. 27 targets for Houston. Another team just super banged up right now. Keep a close eye on that injury report. Where else can we go here? What else is happening? Let me see. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Jermaine Kearse. So, beneficiary of injury. Let's see if I can find this here. Here we go. With Quincy Enunwa going down, right, which is kind of a shame because I like his game a lot. But Jermaine Kearse saw 10 targets last week, racked in 94 yards, did not score a touchdown, which is good, kind of keeps him off the radar a little bit. $4,100 on DraftKings. The Jets are going to have to throw the ball against Minnesota. Already talked about that a little bit, but that would be a very, very cheap stack this week. Anybody else that pops off here? No, I think that's good. I mean, let me know what you're going to do here. I like the New England pass catchers. Edelman, Josh Gordon, they all rate really well for me. Christian Kirk pops up here too. So, unfortunately, I don't think there's anything too interesting here. It's kind of straightforward at this point of the season with no serious injuries. So let me know what you're going to do at the wide receiver position as we move along to tight end. And don't quote me on this. I know I mentioned it earlier for a stat for Andrew Luck. That one I looked up myself. I also read that Zach Ertz is on pace to break the tight end receptions record this year. Don't quote me on that. I think it's true. Don't quote me on it. He is $7,100 this week. Again, kind of goes into the whole Carson Wentz, Carolina struggling type of situation. But let's look at the targets. And here we go. Okay, so last 3 weeks, Zach Ertz continues to lead the league in targets. But then you get Eric Ebron, another Colt, right? Like, no surprise here. And then David Njoku at 30 targets in the last 3 weeks. That is more than Travis Kelce. I mean, it's more than everybody else, right? So Baker Mayfield relying heavily on David Njoku. The problem is Baker Mayfield not very accurate, as we're coming to find out. So even despite that, Njoku scored 18.5 fantasy points last week, finally got in the end zone. 12 and 10 the 2 weeks before that. So I think he's going to continue to be a really good option. He's only $4,200 this week against a Tampa Bay defense that would probably allow me to score. Pretty ugly. So I imagine I'm going to be just focusing completely on volume this week because you can do it. It's Njoku, it's Ebron, it's Ertz for me. And then outside of that, let's see who else we have at the tight end position. George Kittle, I guess the idea is that San Francisco is going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. Trey Burton found the end zone last week, right? Let's see this. Yeah, there we go. 2 weeks in a row. Unfortunately, still only seeing like 4 or 5 targets a game. Trubisky has actually provided fantasy value to, Tariq Cohen, other pass catchers, but it's really Trey Burton, I think, has been a pretty big disappointment, even with the two straight weeks of touchdowns. I don't think you need to go much lower than that. You can probably go get either one of the Tampa Bay tight ends, O.J. Howard probably being my favorite, but I don't think it's necessary because there's other good plays on board. There you go. Let me know what you think about this week. It's week 7. I think wide receiver is the most interesting, or maybe not the most interesting thing this week, but I'm looking for your opinion on where to go there because there's really nothing that stands out. Tweet me, it's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. Later. Good luck.